It has now been almost 2 years since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. When in March, lockdown was imposed in our country, it took us a lot of time to come in terms with what has struck us. However, during that time, there was a team of engineers at GO-MMT who were relentlessly working on Arogya Setu. And I'm sure by now you all are aware that Arogya Setu is a mobile app which has helped India to fight COVID-19 and keep all of us safe. Today, we are here to know more about Arogya Setu. Hello, my name is Sunil Bahuguna, and with me today I have Rahul Goyal, Senior Vice President Technology, to talk about Arogya Setu in detail. Rahul has done his BTech in Computer Science from IIT Roorkee, and in his current role, he is leading technology for hotel and alternate accommodation business. He led the team which has been instrumental in the launch of Arogya Setu. Welcome, Rahul, and thank you for joining me. So Rahul, tell us how this idea of Arogya Setu got conceptualized and executed.
So back in March 2020, in the first week of March, few cases started reporting in India after the spread of virus in Europe and Middle East. And I came across one of the social media posts by one of the state governments where the entire contact tracing graph of an infected patient was published. That graph basically contained the last 10 days of history with tentative locations, date and time when that person was around that location. And then a lot of people were asked in terms of to kind of report to the government in case they feel any symptom when they were at the same place at the same time, or quarantine at home for a few days. Now, the similar approach was taken by a few of the state governments around that time, and cases were still less than 50 in India at that time. Looking at the spread across the world and the pace of the spread, we were sure that this particular way of manually kind of doing the contact tracing and intimating the people about the risk will not scale. So looking at these things, the basic idea was that there should be definitely some technology intervention that can happen and some solution that can be built which can help scale this approach. So that was I think the trigger point of this entire Arogya Setu app, or the idea at that point of time. Later on, thinking more about this, the first idea came that if there can be mobile app in everyone's phone, and with GPS, if that can track the whereabouts of a particular person over time, and once the person is infected positive, finding an overlap through the GPS technology about various individual, we can intimate people who are at risk. So that was the first idea. I started discussing this with my colleagues, and idea refined from GPS to Bluetooth technology. That instead of GPS, we can use Bluetooth. The proximity sensing will be much better. And more or less every smartphone these days have by default Bluetooth built in the device. So that was there. Then we shared this idea with our founders by writing a write-up about how this can potentially work. And then they also felt that there is a huge potential in the idea, and at this point in time, it can help the nation. So they shared it further with the government agencies, Niti Aayog, with them. So about in few days, a week's time, we heard back by Niti Aayog in terms of to discuss the idea further. And when we went on call, basically there were few other private organizations, few people within the government and institution who had a similar concept in place about the contact tracing. We brainstormed it further and thought that definitely there is a potential about building an app of this sort. And from there on, one thing led to another, and a lot of people collaborated within government, private institutions, and public institutions to build this app together and take the idea forward over the course of next 2.5 to 3 weeks, and taking it to reality in the form of Arogya Setu.
Yeah, interesting. So technology-wise, it would have been very complex problem to be solved. Share your experience learning through this journey from conceptualizing to getting Arogya Setu live.
Correct. So from the beginning, we knew about few things. One is that roughly about 200 to 50 million smartphone devices are there in India. The make of the devices, the operating systems are quite diverse in nature. So we thought that getting the app installed for the first time will be a challenge, and updating it multiple times will be an even bigger challenge. So how we decided to build the entire app, what should be built in native versus on JavaScript, what the conscious call taking this decision in mind that the over the air updates or without updating the app, we should be able to ship features uh, at a lot of times. So that was one of the constraints. Second was in terms of scale, that the platform should be scalable, should be able to handle millions of requests, high level of concurrency, highly fault tolerant and secure. Since we knew that we would be dealing with the sensitive data, we ensured that all the communication that will happen between the client and the backend server will be secure, and no unnecessary data will be transferred from a user's mobile device to the backend until and unless the user is infected and validated through ICMR data. So that was another thing, that was how the app was designed. And the third part was in terms of Bluetooth. The entire contact tracing algorithm relied on Bluetooth, working of Bluetooth in the background and scanning multiple devices that are in near proximity. So the signal strength value that we used to calculate the distance with. So based on the Bluetooth signal strength, we used to calculate the distance, approximate distance between the two devices. That and between various Android, iOS, and different makers of Android devices. In certain devices, there were certain challenges that we need to overcome in terms of this to work properly. Correct. So some interesting problems, lot of learning for everyone working on this. But overall, the team did well in overcoming this challenge and solving these problems.
And Arogya Setu is the highest downloaded app so far, huh?
Yes. So this app became the fastest app to reach 50 million downloads. It did it in 13 days. The other app that did was previously in 19 days across the world. Then this is, I think, the first healthcare app to reach 200 million downloads. So the nature of the app was such that it is a necessity in such challenging times that people, for their own and their loved ones' safety, they wanted to know about the risk level, or if they came in contact with an infected person intentionally or unintentionally over the past few days, right? So a lot of people downloaded. There were a lot of awareness campaigns from Government of India in terms of educating people that how it can help. So that helped. And during the last 1 year to 8-9 months, this platform is now also tightly integrated with COVID, where people can book slots for vaccination, download certificates from the app. So it is quite widely used across the country.
So Rahul, tell us about the culture in your team and at large from the organization perspective, which foster the culture of innovation.
So I think Arogya Setu is quite a classic example of how idea, which is in an unrelated domain, not for profit, from an employee within the organization, how the leadership kind of backed the idea and eventually helped it make reality, right? Take it to reality, right? So, and similarly, if you see how we build travel products, solve consumer needs, the same culture is followed. Any individual from any function can kind of come up with an idea which can improve the product or the consumer life, and that is basically built by the entire team, discussed, brainstormed, and further refined and taken it to the consumer if it is worth it or can solve a real consumer need.
Very interesting. So, any interesting project which your team is doing currently?
Yeah. So with this pandemic, there are a lot of changes in the travel, how people travel, what kind of accommodation people select while they travel. So there is a lot of shift from traditional hotels, people booking traditional 4-star, 5-star hotels, to people booking villas, homes, and apartments during their stay, at either for business or leisure. So people are trying to book these, which are much more private. The spaces are much more bigger in nature, and there is a feeling of social distancing where it's not crowded as well. Right. So a lot of people are preferring these type of accommodation more over the traditional hotel accommodation. So we have seen a huge growth in this segment specifically. So we are trying to go much more deeper into this segment, both on the supplier and consumer end. We are building the entire seller experience from scratch. For that, more and more homeowners can come and list their property on our platform and sell that on Make My Trip, Go-IBO, and other partner websites. Similarly, from the consumer and the kind of need while booking this property, the kind of queries that come in consumers' mind are quite different. So we are building the entire consumer discovery and search for these type of properties in a very new way. We are trying to connect the consumer and the host or the homeowner over the chat interface on the platform for further queries which can be solved. So there's a lot of innovation and work that is happening in this segment, both on consumer and supplier side, in a new way, which will further fuel the growth of this particular segment and make it easier for consumers to book.
Mm-hmm. So Rahul, you have been managing large team, and with new interesting projects coming in, you are also looking to strengthen your team. What all qualities do you look in the individual when you are hiring?
Okay, so first of all, the technical skills. So there are first few interview rounds which focus purely on technical skill, problem solving, coding. Then in the later two interviews, we also kind of assess a candidate in terms of ownership, passion, learning, how they have done that in their previous experience, and what is their passion towards building scalable software solutions, and how they approach. So this has been a huge focus. Even if when we look at internally, it's not that a solution is given and an engineering team is just there to implement. An engineer also tries to think about the problem statement end to end, and if this current proposed solution is going to solve that problem or not. Engineers openly give ideas, refine the solution along with the product and business teams, and make the solution even better. So we want someone with the same level of passion and ownership to come and join us at GO-MMT, who can contribute to build consumer products which can solve real consumer problems.
That's the fascinating story, Rahul, about Arogya Setu. And it was great to know about other projects. That's really intriguing. Thank you, Rahul, for sparing time and sharing your experience and your thought with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Pleasure talking to you.
Hope you would have got some insight on some of the interesting problem which GO-MMT tech team is solving. Keep watching this space for more interesting stuff. Thank you.